Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome. We are glad you are here for today's show. We have with us Michael J. Hawron, who has written several books, and he's done quite well. He's won an award, and he's won actually some kudos from Kirkus Reviews, which is hard to do, but we'll get into that in just a bit. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, Alan. It's great to be with you.
And we're glad to have you here. So let's give our listeners a little background about you. You are a person who has quite an interesting background. You studied at MIT, which is not an easy task to begin with. But you also then was a missionary who moved around the world quite a lot. Am I missing something there? You know, that's a big change.
Yes, that is a big change. It just in my first book was titled Entertaining Detours, and I guess that was a big detour I took from MIT to the mission field. And but it's been a great life. I've had a lot of wonderful experiences. I've met a lot of great folks along the way in 30-some different countries, and it's given me lots of great material for the different books that I've embarked on writing.
And speaking of one of them, Entertaining Detours, that has quite a collection of little chapter-length anecdotes and funny and poignant and just tons of goodies in there. So tell us more about that one.
Well, that book was about mostly my time in Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong for 11 years. I actually lived on an outlying island in the South China Sea, up a remote valley, mountain valley, and there's about 12 houses in the whole valley. They're all old Chinese farmers except for my family, so we were quite an anomaly. And so many years later, my oldest son and my oldest daughter and I decided to go back and visit that area and see what it's like, and we set about to do that. And when I looked on the map to see our old house from Google Maps, I came across this thing called Ark Eden, and I clicked on that to find out what Ark Eden was, and it turned out to be an environmental group that set up a permaculture and farming situation there right where we used to live. So I sent them an email and said, hey, we used to live there. Do you know about the house we used to live in? And they said, oh, yeah, we're living in your old house, and come and visit us. So I began exchanging stories with the founder of Ark Eden, Miss Jenny Quinton, and as we began exchanging emails and our stories, she said, you need to put this into a book. And I said, nah, I can't do a book. How about I just do you some short stories? And, one thing led to another, and it became a book. It was very entertaining, and writing the book was actually quite a detour in my life in itself.
And that has become a very big detour for you. Because if I remember correctly, when you mentioned your family checking out your previous life, you were actually living here in Texas and in a town that actually gave you a story idea for another book called The Little Town with the Big Heart. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. We ended up in New Boston, Texas, and the book, The Little Town with the Big Heart, came about in part because of so many folks asked me, hey, you lived all over the world. We saw that in Entertaining Detours. How on earth did you ever land in this little town called New Boston? And so that was a good question, and the answer was a good story. And so we set about to do pretty much the same thing. It's a collection of short stories, all true memoirs, and also some oral history told to me by some of the older citizens in the town here. And I learned a lot of very fascinating things. Turns out we live on one of the most historic properties in the town, and we kind of just stumbled across that treasure. Somebody in the Chamber of Commerce got a postcard that I sent them for Christmas with the cover of the book, and next thing I knew, the Chamber of Commerce was using my book, the title, and the artwork for their annual Chamber of Commerce banquet, and so that's been kind of fun. Since then, the town has built a museum, which just opens tomorrow, called the Museum of Three Bostons. New Boston was once upon a time Boston and Old Boston, and now there's New Boston. So there's a museum commemorating the history of our town, and my book will be in the gift shop once they get that up and running. And that book will also be featured in Kirkus Magazine's issue. I think it's coming out in August. It's going to be in the yearly edition. It's called Indie Reads Worth Discovering. So the little town's getting a big splash.
Great. And you mentioned that it's a memoir of short stories. So these are done in fictional context? Yes.
I've done fictional things as well. I two things recently came about. I was my book, The Just Good Clean Fun, which is a spy adventure, that has won the 2018 Texas Authors Best for Spy Novel, and that was a real interesting experience. It came about as a result of a conversation and an experience and an observation I had at my mother's funeral. You wouldn't think that would lead to a spy story, but I guess that's the way creative minds work. And then I dabbled in something different. I was doing a science fiction parody short story called The Device, and that won the Jory Sermon 2018 short story contest here in Texas. So that was a bit of a change of pace from doing the memoirs. I've written a trilogy of memoirs. The third one is Awesome Footsteps. That's my newest book. I guess we'll talk about that in a bit. And then branching out in some other genres as well, just to keep my mind fresh and just to experiment with going down different rabbit holes, I guess.
Speaking of the rabbit hole, this one that you wrote, Just Good Clean Fun, the one that won the award, it is a spy story, but it's done in a very interesting way because you have this town called Westbush that seems to be breeding future spies. Is that correct?
Yes. It's a small town. It could be anywhere, just out in a nice, outside of a suburb, more like a country town. And set in the most of the story takes place in the 70s and 80s, but the children grow up in the 50s, just before all the Cold War and the space race and all that took place. And these young boys, young women become recruited by a CIA program designed to recruit young adults, and they're sent on a new adventure around the world. The story takes place in Australia, where they topple the Whitlam government, and then it moves to Hong Kong, where the CIA works with the Red Chinese to help wrestle Hong Kong away from the British, and then it moves to Poland, where there's a attempt on the life of the Pope, and so on. Now, the interesting thing about this book is that although it's fiction, it's probably 99% true. The historical references, the different governmental events, actually took place, and I've researched that very carefully, plus I lived through those very experiences. So what I did is I weaved my characters through basically my life's travel to these different political hotspots, and I was able to add some good local color and flavor because I had actually walked in those streets and eaten at those restaurants and talked to those government officials. So it was an attempt to do something new. I said, I wonder if I could write a spy novel. This is basically centered around my life. So we'll call it an autobiographical fiction, if there is such a thing.
So I'm going to step out here on the limb, because it sounded like you just admitted to being a spy at the same time. Now,
well,
that's really not true, right?
Not exactly. No, I wasn't a spy for a government, but I did intelligence gathering work for different organizations, and some of that was kind of interesting and hairy, and you could read about that. And well, there's some of those stories are in Entertaining Detour, and there's some of them in Just Good Clean Fun. So you'll have to read between the lines and make your own conclusions. I won't give away all my secrets.
So you really do have a lot of detours, because here you go to MIT, then you go to ministry, now you're going to a spy, and now you're a writer. So what do you think's next for you?
I don't know. I'm pondering becoming a golf pro. I played a good round the other day, and I'm wondering if I could maybe get on the senior tour, but probably not. I think I'll stick with writing. With writing, it's become a passion for me for a number of reasons. It's a great way to expand my mind and learn and grow as a person. It's also a wonderful way to meet people. I've joined a few different organizations, the Texas Authors Association, the East Texas Writers Association, Northeast Texas Writers Organization. Met some great folks, have wonderful camaraderie, and learned some neat stories about people. I've met some great folks along the way, and I've also gotten into mentoring a few people. I had a woman call me 3 days ago from Melbourne, Australia, who I knew, maybe 30 years ago. And she'd read one of my books, and she said, listen, my best friend just died on the year anniversary of my brother dying, and I'm writing this poem about grief to enter into this contest tomorrow, and since you're a writer, would you read it for me? So that was really out of the blue, but we had a great time talking, and that's something I like doing, networking with people, mentoring people, just trying to help others to, I guess, find their voice and get their message out. So it's been a great time.
Well, you definitely are showing people that you should write what you know, because you've gotten not only the award, but you've gotten good reviews and stuff. So using your background as part of what your stories are is definitely a major plus for you.
Yes. Well, I think everybody has a story to tell. Each of us is a universe on two legs. We all have experiences that are unique to ourselves. We all have an insight that no one else has. Some of them may be more pedestrian than others, but nonetheless, there's a story worth telling, and I would encourage anyone who, feels the urge to go ahead. It's not like there's a right way and a wrong way. It's your life, it's your voice, and it's a free country. You could do that.
And you're definitely showing that people can. We are going to take a break here and let our sponsors do their thing, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about your newest book that just came out called Awesome Footsteps, and we'll be right back.
All right, Alan, thank you.
Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network. Hello, Texas authors. My name is Randy James, coming to you from my Carrollton recording studio, where I spend time writing and producing commercials for my radio endorsement clients, as well as my private freelance clients. I'd like the opportunity to help you sell more books with a commercial like this and get listeners of Dear Texas Radio excited about your title, all at a special introductory price, available to members of the Texas Association of Authors. Call or text 214-762-1942. That's 214-762-1942.
Texas Authors Institute of History is the only museum in the country dedicated to a state's author group. You can learn about past Texas authors and their books, along with new and exciting authors that write in a variety of genres. To learn more, please visit our website at texasauthors.institute.
Texas Authors is proud to be a supporter of IndieBeacon.com, a website that supports indie authors from around the world. If you are looking for help with marketing or getting published, IndieBeacon.com can assist you. Years of experience by the founder is available to any indie author looking for help. IndieBeacon.com, a place for creative souls to find help in marketing their creations.
It was the most popular aircraft in the world, but did it have a flaw? That is the central question in the new book Scapegoat by author Emilio Corsetti III. Scapegoat tells the true story of a flight crew wrongly blamed for causing a near-fatal accident and the captain's decades-long battle to clear his name. Get your copy of the book today at your favorite bookstore or at books.txauthors.com.
Do you love to read great new ebooks? Visit ebg247.com. Be the first to discover the next bestseller. At ebg247, we have the web's largest selection of great new book reads, from that amazing new fiction or nonfiction to horror, romance, and fantasy. We even have today's best children's books. That's ebg247.com. New books arrive daily, and all ebooks start at just 99 cents. If you love to read, then you'll love ebg247.com. Low prices, large selection, and an easy-to-use website. It's all only at ebg247.com.
After his mother is murdered, teenager Scott Harold with feisty new girlfriend Jessie uncover an illegitimate past that leads them to the Oval Office. Will they reach the president before the killer gets to them? Identity Check, a thriller by author Rich Allen, available in print or Kindle at Amazon.com. With only 2 golden rings, 10 days worth of supplies, and the guidance of an old redwood tree, Toby and Cameron Hunter begin the journey of a lifetime. Get your copy of The Guardian by L.M. Nelson, available as a paperback or an ebook at your favorite bookstore now. Have you ever thought what you would do if you had to put your life on hold to parent your parents? Charlotte Cannon has lived the journey caring for 3 parents with dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Her book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents, is a survival guide for adult children caring for aging seniors. Her book is available at books.txauthors.com, Amazon, or your favorite bookstore.
And welcome back to today's show. We have Michael J. Hawron with us, who has written several books. We've been talking about some of them earlier, one of them being his award-winning book, Just Good, Clean Fun. The other one being The Little Town with the Big Heart, and also Entertaining Detours. And if you were listening, Michael has been gone to school at MIT, then was a minister, and then kind of sort of admitted to being a little bit of an information collector. We'll leave it at that. And now a writer. And welcome back, Michael.
Thank you, Alan.
Real quickly, let people know how they can reach out and find you and find your books.
They can go to my website, which is michael-hawron.com, and that's Mike, H-A-W-R-O-N, michael-hawron.com, and they can contact me there. It's got a contact page, my email address, phone, and details about myself and my books are there.
Great. And so you have the newest book, which is Awesome Footsteps. You received a 1-star rating from Kirkus, which is really difficult to do, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
This, too, like some of your others, is a short story collection. So give me some more details to what all these stories collected mean.
Right. The 3 books of memoirs have an arc title called the True Tales Trilogy. It's a trilogy, 3 books of true tales. And the first book, Entertaining Detours, was mainly humorous insights of some of my experiences, a lot of self-deprecating humor, and just a very secular read. The Little Town with the Big Heart was more of a tribute to the town and the people of New Boston and their history, how they live, how they've welcomed our family. And now in this last section of my memoirs, Awesome Footsteps, I wanted to go more in depth on a spiritual level because for a number of years I was traveling doing mission work in about 5 different continents on 30 different countries, and I had a number of very amazing experiences that happened to me. In my earlier books, I just said, well, maybe this is coincidence or maybe it's something else. That's up to you to decide. But in this book, I came out more straight out and said, no, this is because of my faith in God and how I decided to live my life, and that these are the things that happened to me, whether it was healing or miraculous protection or provision of a need by an unusual manner, care for my children, guidance when I was lost. Each chapter of the book deals with a different topic, and it starts with a verse that kind of keynotes what that chapter is about, and I tell what happened to me in that particular situation and how that reinforced my belief, whether it was in healing or protection or guidance, something along that line. Now, I decided to test this out, and I sent it into Kirkus, and I figured, well, these folks are not going to like a very spiritual, religious book, but I was very pleasantly surprised that they really gave me a real shining write-up about that, and they said I was a consummate storyteller, which I take that as a real genuine compliment. And they said that in the final entry of the True Tales trilogy, prolific memoirist Hawron lovingly details how his 3 decades of missionary work changed his life. I think that's a pretty good summary. The book does detail the things that happened to me. I definitely really did become, I would say, more spiritual. I wouldn't say more religious, but more spiritually minded through my experiences. And it's a challenge to people to, live up to whatever their faith may be and to maybe expect a little bit more out of life than just the prosaic 9-to-5 rational world. There's something out there that defies description, but it's real and it's powerful. At the end of the review, Kirkus says that my uplifting message remains compassionately humanitarian, even for non-believers, and it expresses a grand appreciation for the gift of life and the wonders of faith and divine benevolence. It's a shimmering, fitting coda to a memoir series grounded in tradition and a zest for life. And I'm glad they captured that, the appreciation for the gift of life. I've tried to highlight that in each of my books, that life is a gift. Life may be difficult or challenging, but it definitely is a gift. And this book, I think, goes a long ways towards celebrating that fact.
It definitely sounds like you did. And like I said, getting a 1-star from Kirkus is not an easy feat. So you definitely should be very proud of that. We have a couple questions from our Dear Texas listeners. One of them says, "Hello, Mike. If you could choose any country to return to live, which one would you choose?"
That's difficult. I can narrow it down to 3. I did return to Hong Kong, where I had lived for 11 years, and after a 30-year gap, we went back and spent a few weeks there. Well, actually, just a week there, and I could have stayed. I loved everything about my time there. I also lived for 6 years in Australia. Australia is 10,000 miles of beaches and all kinds of gorgeous, wonderful scenery and fantastic people, and I have some of my children and grandchildren there. So I visit there and toy with the idea of moving there. Thirdly, I lived in Vienna, which is seen in my book, Just Good, Clean Fun. And Vienna is just, if you like culture, music, great food, and just enjoying life, Vienna is like dying and going to heaven and waking up and still being on Earth. So those are the 3 places. I think if I had to go back to one place, I'd have to circle between those 3. And I guess where I live in East Texas, I'm equidistant from all of them, so I'm in a radius, I guess.
Well, we want to thank Patty Wiseman for asking that question, but it also brought up something in reference to Awesome Footsteps, because in your description you were talking about an event in Hong Kong that was quite a challenge for you. I'm curious, one, as to why you chose to put this in your sales pitch or synopsis, and this is where the annual act of lighting candles at gravestones to honor deceased loved ones turned into quite a firestorm. Without giving too much away, give us a little bit more about that story and why you chose to put that in the synopsis.
Well, that one basically was a real life and death situation. We lived on this outlying island, which was lush and green for 6 months of the year, and then it turned bone dry in the autumn. And when these 50-mile-an-hour winds blew down from Manchuria, that was the time they were lighting these candles at the graves, and the hill fires caught fire often. And we saw this fire in the distance. It looked miles away, but the wind was so strong, it was upon our property almost before we knew it. My wife and kids managed to get down the pathway and stay with some neighbors. Their house was surrounded by a rice paddy, so they were pretty sure they weren't going to get burned up there. I was going to follow them, and then I wanted to check on our water source before I left to make sure everything was in place. And when I got up there, the flames came over the top of the hill and just yards away from me, and I turned quickly to leave, and my foot was stuck between 2 rocks. It just would not move, and I thought, here I go. And 2 things happened. One is I cried out to God, help me, I got to get out of this situation, and my foot came loose. And right at that time, this helicopter came overhead with this bucket, giant bucket, I don't know how many hundreds of gallons of water it had, and it released it on the hillside, and it hit me, knocked me flat, and also put out the flames. So I was rescued in 2 ways that time. I managed to hobble down the hill, get back to my family, and the whole hillside continued to catch on fire. The next morning, we went back up to see if anything was left of our property, and the whole valley was blackened with ash from the fire. But there was an acre of green in the midst of it all, and that acre was the acre of land where our property was, and it was still green and untouched.
So that, it sounds like the water drop also saved the house at the same time.
Yes.
We have another question from Dana Wayne. You obviously have a lot of very interesting life experiences to draw from. But what is your favorite thing to write?
Oh, that's difficult. But I think the favorite thing I like about writing is I like for people to think. I believe if people would take time to think, their lives would be better. I think the world would be better. So I like to entertain people. I'm doing that through a number of different genres and types of writing. But in all of them, I try to tell them, think and enjoy your life. So that, I think, is something I will always try to put into my story. I'm working on a new book now called Walkers. It's about a dystopian future where it's illegal to walk outside your property, and the outlaws are walkers, but they actually become the saviors of these people in this. They're kind of living in a polished hell. Everything looks perfect, but below the surface it's quite sinister. And I'm trying to bring about the point that people need to keep in touch with basics of living, knowing how to read, how to find their way with a compass, how to read a map. So if people can remember to think, then I think a lot of things will become a lot clearer for them. I also believe if people read, it will really help them to calm down. When you read and immerse yourself in a book, you have to give it your full attention. You have to activate your creativity and your imagination. And when you're doing that, you're refreshing your spirit. And it's something you can't do by the instant stimuli from all the social media or TV, internet. A book will take you on a journey and take you places and make you a wiser and stronger person from doing that.
Great. And I'm going to ask a very logical question, I hope. Being the fact that you've written so many different things and you've done quite well, what words of advice do you have for somebody who's coming up in writing?
Somebody who's coming up, I would say two things. Find yourself a mentor and find yourself a muse. Now, I had a muse that really helped me with my first book, kind of encouraged me when I thought, this is stupid, this is corny, this is never going to work, nobody's going to want to read this. And I'd send off a chapter to Jenny, and she'd say, Mike, this is fantastic, this is brilliant, hey, here's some ideas for you. It really helps having someone who believes in you, who you can bounce your ideas off of. They do not have to be a literary agent or proficient, but just somebody that's a good listener and somebody that you feel has your back and has your best interest. So having a mentor, having a muse, I would say, goes a long ways towards helping you with the first step in writing a book. And the other thing is, don't be afraid. It's not like a pass-fail exam. There's no wrong answer to writing a book. It's an essay, and every answer is right. It's just a matter of doing it.
Okay. We only have just a few seconds left, so if you would please let people know again how they can find you and your books.
They can find my books on Amazon.com, and you can also contact me through my website, michael-hawron.com. That's michael-hawron.com.
Great. And we thank you very much, Mike, for your time, and we wish you the best of luck.
Alan, thanks so much. It's a pleasure.
Gatekeepers Press' mission is to open the gates of the book publishing world by offering the highest quality services at affordable prices. To learn more or to read some of the testimonials, go to gatekeeperpress.com.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.